Stop scrolling. You have just found Things I Found Online, where comedians and hand-selected experts will guide you through a fascinating exploration of the internet. I am the outrageously hilarious comedian Matt Champagne. We'll see about that. Here with actor Lisa Arch, comedian Lori Roggenkamp, college man Jake Palanker, and a woman uniquely unqualified to explain British lawmakers' rejection of the Brexit deal, Louise Palanker.
I need to choose my intro words very carefully here and set a triumphant example, because today we are exploring the circle of language. We humans collectively form language, which in turn informs us. With us, via Zoom, is Caitlin O'Connell from linguabishes.com. Oh, look, there's Kate. So, you have Post-its. All right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you planning on taking over the world? What's on those?
That's so old school. I want to give it a hug.
Yeah.
So here is Caitlin's site, linguabishes.com, and tell us a little bit about that, Caitlin.
Well, linguabishes.com is a website I started with my very well-named friend, Kaylin, not to be confused with myself, Caitlin, where we just research current papers in linguistics and try and summarize them for people who are like us, who don't have time to read research papers.
All right, so it's like a Cliff Notes of language, where everything I need to know without having to actually read a whole book.
That's exactly right. And we also add a lot of fun GIFs, so you can, even if you don't feel like reading the whole thing, like my mom, you can just enjoy the GIFs if you want.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I heard gifts, like they include presents, but that's not what you said, right?
No.
Okay.
No, there are no presents involved.
All right.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
Not yet, although we do have a marketing plan we would like to run by
It's
you.
the gift of language.
Oh, Lori.
There we go.
Very
All
good.
right. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
So Word Nerds put a lot of thought behind the word of the year. And we are here today. It's January. And I know a lot of people, there's a lot of suspense all December long. It's like fingers are crossed and, the billboards go up on Sunset. I would like to, for your consideration.
Right.
Word of the year is.
Right.
So
Can we play a game of the word of the year last year? And we just.
Well, sure.
Yeah, because I don't know if anyone else here doesn't remember, but I don't remember what
I
the
think
year
it was Moonlight.
word was.
No, that was film. Anyway. So explain word of the year for us, because I aspire to word nerdiness.
Sure. Well, I guess it was started in 1990 by the executive secretary of the American Dialect Society at the time, Alan Metcalf. He was really influenced by Time Magazine's Person of the Year. And he thought that it'd be a great publicity stunt if they did their own Word of the Year vote at their annual meeting. And so they did. And they took nominations and chose a few of their favorite words from the years, words they thought were very significant from that year. And they had a vote and picked a winner. And over the years, it grew more and more popular, and they played around with different categories. And then some dictionaries started jumping on board. And in the late 90s and early 2000s, when dictionaries went online, all of a sudden there was mineable data to actually see which words were used the most. So then there are all kinds of publications who have words of the year, who are choosing them for many different reasons. Some are purely data-driven, some are editorial. And we're at today where you can be a motivational life coach and you can have your own personal word of the year. If you Google word of the year, there will be many, many, many different opinions about what the most influential word of the year is or was or should have been.
Is there a category for most played out word of the year? Because I think narrative should be. I think narrative is misused. I see narrative a lot in that narrative. You know what I mean?
My most played out news word of the year is pivot.
Oh,
I was just going to say that.
So done with it.
Also made famous on a Friends episode,
Also,
by the way.
we can walk and chew gum at the same... Oh, that's a whole sentence.
Yeah. How about optics? People use optics in a weird way. Instead of just saying, see how that looks, they go, let's look at the optics of that.
Yeah.
I have a question,
You know what I
Caitlin.
Sure.
Is there... Can the word of the year be a phrase, like on the DL
definitely.
or something? It can be.
Definitely, and frequently is. If you ask linguists what's a word, they'll rarely agree on one definition of what a word is. It really depends on what context you need a definition of a word in. So yeah, a hashtag by some measures could be a word, and some people like to call emojis words in some situations.
Oh, wow. Well, like at the end of the day was a thing that I felt was overused so much many years ago.
Yeah, that's really British, and now we've sort of adopted it.
I had a manager that said at the end of the day, and the last time he ever said it was at the end of the day, I'm losing you as a client. And you know what? It was 6 p.m., so he was speaking quite literally.
Yeah. Do advertisers attempt to shove a word into our lexicon like Fahrvergnügen, which is a German word that means driving pleasure, shoved at us by Volkswagen in 1990?
Have you ever had a Fahrvergnügen shoved into you in any kind of way? Is what Louise is what Louise is asking.
Depends on what orifice they're attempting to.
It's what made me gay. So,
is that a thing where
you hear that, guys? It makes you gay.
Yeah,
it's actually.
Is that a thing where corporations try to get involved and sort of influence our language and aspire to have that word of the year?
Yeah, I don't know if there's that much influence of corporations doing it, but you have to remember that dictionaries are for-profit publications, and frequently it's a good idea for them to choose a word of the year just for publicity's sake. But I don't think it's any case of trying to make a brand name more popular. Like McDonald's is never word of the year.
So Oxford's word of the year is never Oxford.
No.
Okay, all right.
It'd be weird. Like,
God,
20 years
if I were
running.
Oxford, I would be voting for that every year.
So let's see. How often do comedians inspire the word of the year? In 2006, the word of the year was Stephen Colbert's word gift, truthiness.
Yeah, good question. Well, I wouldn't say just comedians, but celebrities, people in the public eye often affect our speech and the words we use. For example, "Thank You Next" was a huge word nomination this year. That's obviously from Ariana Grande's hit single, "Thank You Next."
Bye, Felicia.
And that's really, really common. Rappers, movie stars, we love the way they talk, and we emulate our idols, so it's very common.
But aren't those catchphrases?
Yeah,
is there a
those
difference
are,
between?
yeah.
But that's what she said. A phrase can also be the word of the year.
Yeah. Also, I feel like "Bye, Felicia," the reason I brought it up is because if you take the word in context, it doesn't seem anything, but based off the movie and based how people use it now, it's basically like "F you."
Right.
Which word?
"Bye, Felicia."
Yeah.
Oh, bye, Felicia.
It's like just a dismissive way of saying.
But
F
is that
you.
something you could look up in the dictionary?
I don't know if "Bye Felicia" has made.
Depends on which dictionary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which dictionary would you see that in?
Urban Dictionary.
Right.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The best dictionary.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race, and they have a lot of like, what's the tea means like what's the story, or let's be honest with
What's
each other.
the tea?
Yeah.
They've come up with a lot.
Yeah.
They have fears.
It's more of
and
like what's the gossip,
more.
but
what does the T stand for? Is there an
T is like the
actual
gossip.
Tail? What's the tail?
God.
Yeah, like
That
what's
you
the
drink.
goss?
It's
Yeah.
the conversations that you have over a cup of tea.
Yeah, it comes like the sipping tea gif, like like she did that, like that
Yeah.
kind of.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like
Okay.
the more fringer elements of society come up with like most of the words. And it's like that in high school too. Like the fringiest kids are wearing stuff that everyone's going to be wearing 10 years later, except those kids are long gone from high school. And so no one even knows they were influenced by them. But I feel like that happens with language too, because like you have
I was just going to say that.
and all of that is coming from marginalized people because they're the most creative.
Can I nominate a word for the year? You know how people say whatevs? I'd like to advocate whatev, singular. No one ever says whatev. What if there's just one whatev?
Interesting.
Well,
Those always work in groups, but I don't see why there can't be one whatev.
I want to know why Jake rolled his eyes when I said something about more marginalized.
Because I was really proud of you for almost all of it.
And then because he always tells me when I step in it, like,
No.
you cannot say that.
Because there's a huge history, and not just American culture, but that's the one we're in, where black culture or gay culture, other groups, marginalized groups historically, they're like artifacts, sometimes that's words, get stolen and like appropriated, however you want to describe that, by mainstream culture. And I think that's got a lot more to do with like power hierarchy and who we value, and then who we think of as real and who we think of as like commoditized or identities. And then at the end you said it's because marginalized people are just more creative, which I don't think is a fair I think that's like simplifying a very complicated
Laura,
power
you're
structure.
gay, aren't they?
Well, I'm gay, but I'm also white, so I'm very bland. I agree with you in some ways, but I also think that what she was saying was true. Is like if you're a culture is based off of stealing from other cultures, that culture is not going to have a lot going on for itself, you know. So it's like you think of white culture, nothing like pops out. I feel like for me, nothing pops out at me about white culture in general, other than just maybe like, I don't know, slavery.
We blush nicely.
Yeah.
As a creative Jewess, I would like to bring some Yiddish words into the common vernacular. Like I would like people to start saying schwitzing instead of sweating.
I say that. I say schlep all the time.
Schlep is a great one.
Kafakta. I love.
I don't know that word.
Oh, that means it's all screwed up.
Kafakta?
Yeah, it's all kafakted up, right? Isn't that? What's that?
Fakakta.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, fakakta.
Thank you.
I'm
Yes.
I'm gonna get mixed up with that egg dish. What's
Now
the egg dish?
we just created a new word.
Matzo bread?
Kafakta.
No, it's like quiche. What's that? Frittata. I'm gonna get mixed up with frittata.
Yiddish
I
words.
get so many Yiddish words mixed up with my favorite dishes.
But
It's embarrassing.
Yiddish words are so soaked in to our culture already that you hear Anderson Cooper using them, and it's like, oh my God.
Because of comedians.
Did
Comedians did
Anderson
that,
Cooper just say kvetch?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
right.
awesome.
But he's also
Speaking of
best friends with
yeah.
Andy Cohen. So
Oh, yeah, well, that's
Catskill, we can blame thank Catskill Comics for that, because
Right.
I love the Yiddish terms.
All right, there are people who function in society as professional word nerds. They may work at an organization such as the American Dialect Society. And this is what it says when you go to their website, which I love. You're going to love the website, Jay, because it's like whatever 1987 is serving up. Yeah, there you go. The American Dialect Society, founded in 1889, is dedicated to the study of the English language in North America and of other languages or dialects of other languages influencing it or influenced by it. Our members include academics and amateurs, professionals and students, professors and students, professionals and dilettantes. I think that applies to me. Teachers and writers, undergraduates and graduates. Anyone can join the society! !
they're so welcoming.
They love what they do.
Yeah, they're basically saying if you're serious about it, you can join, and also if you're really lazy about it, you can join.
Well, they love accepting annual member fees. I think that's the bottom.
We love your money! !
Is that what it is?
What are the fees, Caitlin? Do you know?
I pay, and I don't remember.
Okay.
Okay.
But you are a member in good standing.
Yes, I am.
Is there a pledge?
I don't believe so.
On my honor, I will try. I don't
They
remember the
pay my
rest.
fees every year.
To say words every day.
Farfig nougat.
It's Caitlin, right?
It's Caitlin.
Yeah.
Okay, do you play Scrabble?
No, I'm terrible at Scrabble.
Okay,
How
so
can that be?
That seems
really.
impossible.
Because the point of Scrabble is to find the points, and I don't care about the points. I care about the words. So I'm
I get that.
Oh, that makes
I get
sense.
that.
Damn,
Yeah,
Caitlin.
I laid down plenty of $20 words that were only worth about 3 points. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
My problem is
like
coffee.
sometimes coagulate. That's not going to get you a lot of points.
True.
So as Caitlin mentioned earlier, the dictionary companies have their own motives behind WOTY selections. Have I pronounced that word correctly, Caitlin?
I always say WOTY.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would think it's
WOTY selections. Webster's New World was the first American dictionary to formally choose and publicize a word of the year. Its first pick from 1995 was World Wide Web. In 2005, the Oxford Dictionary word of the year was podcast. This year's Oxford word of the year is, do you know it, Caitlin?
I do.
You go.
It's toxic.
Yes, the word is toxic. It's a
Wow.
multi-expressive word that has different meanings within different collocates.
What's the word should be collocate, not toxic. What's collocate?
It's a co-location. It means a word that appears in the same location, so either before or after it.
So, for example, here are Oxford's top 10 toxic collocations or collocates
I see.
in 2018. Who wants to read them with me? Everybody?
Chemical.
Toxic chemical, toxic masculinity,
Masculinity.
toxic substance,
substance,
toxic
gas,
gas, toxic environment, toxic
relationship,
toxic
culture,
culture, toxic
waste,
waste, toxic
algae,
algae, and toxic
air.
This is like the electric company.
So
I
Felt
said-
like the high holidays.
let's stop for a moment and ask ourselves, why are we more aware of toxicity in all of these, different applications, Caitlin?
Well, I think it rose with the Me Too movements and other callings out of sexual aggression. because you'll see that the number 2 colloquiet there is masculinity. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think that you would have seen that even 2 years ago. So I don't think that toxic in the sense of poison is what this word of the year is really all about. Right. I think it's the way we've begun to use it with masculinity, with toxic homosociality was talked about a lot this year, and toxic culture and relationships. So we've appropriated it from the scientific community to apply to society at large.
I'm surprised masculinity isn't the first one.
Well, I don't think these are...
it says top 10.
Yeah, but I don't know that these are in any specific order. They're just different ways that the word is used. And I think it's interesting that we've taken a word that sounds like we're really good with words and applied it to anything we consider to be bad or out of control.
Britney Spears
makes us seem smarter.
Britney Spears was very ahead of her time, right? Because when did that song come out?
But also, it's not
What
that
song was that?
Toxic.
none of the things are bad. Like,
It's her
for
best
example,
song.
air
What?
isn't bad.
No,
Or
not
algae
the
isn't
thing by
bad.
itself isn't bad, but what
Yeah.
they're saying is when masculinity is bad,
Then it's
you sound
toxic.
smarter if you call it toxic.
Well,
You
yeah.
get my point?
Yes.
Well, toxic masculinity sounds smarter than bad masculinity, for sure.
And that makes it a great word.
Yes. Or I think to call someone toxic, to say I cut someone out of my life because they were toxic, is like a really cutting thing to say.
Right, but it's just kind of saying to at least anyone who knows you, I mean, I wouldn't say that to a person, but it's saying to anyone who knows you that I had to get away from that because it was potentially dangerous.
Absolutely.
It was beyond being like, I really didn't enjoy her company anymore. It was like, this was infecting me.
Right.
It was getting into my bloodstream. And that's what we think of when we think of toxicity.
Absolutely.
So the Oxford shortlist. So it's like they have to pick one word and then there's runners up. So everyone gets to go home with a trophy.
So toxic won for 2018.
And everyone else gets to go home with a trophy, including gaslighting. And I love this word. There was a Teen Vogue article, and I wish I could remember the name of the author, but maybe Caitlin can because she's smart. And she talked about how Trump was gaslighting all of us like almost 2 years ago. And so gaslighting, what is gaslighting? Is the action of manipulating someone by psychological means into accepting a false depiction of reality or doubting their own sanity.
I don't think the president is smart enough to gaslight anyone. Like, if you're gaslighting someone very well, you are a sneaky, manipulative person, and there is nothing sneaky about the president.
But I think the entire GOP has been gaslighting us for the past 25 years.
That's different.
Also, you don't have to be smart. You just need to have some amount of power. If you're at the top of a power hierarchy, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. You have a lot of means to manipulate people below you.
And also, he's just following orders. He's told, say this, and it will make people wonder. So here's the best part of the term gaslighting. The term owes its origin to the 1938 Patrick Hamilton play Gaslight and its 1940 and 1944 film adaptations in which a man dims the gaslights in his home and then persuades his wife that she is imagining the change. Oh. So that's where we get the term. And I love when words are co-opted in that way and then, kind of used appropriately throughout, the rest of life to depict the exact same type of psychological trickery.
What I find interesting about that is that we have the movie coming out in 1940, and only 4 years pass before someone goes, I got to remake this movie again.
Well, maybe, I don't know.
I must try this again.
Maybe the first one didn't have Ingrid Bergman, and if you can have a film with her, why not go for it?
Yeah, sure.
Well, the first one was actually a stage play, and then 4 years later, they made it into a movie.
See, Caitlin just knows things.
She does.
Jordan,
I actually wrote about this word 2 years ago because it was shortlisted by the American Dialect Society as Word of the Year then. And the interesting thing about gaslighting is that word has been popular almost ever since the film adaptation of the play. It's never really gone away. And so it's no surprise to me that this word is back again just 2 years off of its nomination.
Oh, wow.
Because it so perfectly defines what we're living through.
Yeah.
And it's the word. And sometimes words give us a hug that says, I get you.
Yeah.
And I completely get your experience.
One of my favorite bits, the opposition with Jordan Klepper, one of my favorite bits he did was he would hold a gas lamp up. It was completely dark. He'd hold it, and then he'd be like, because his whole thing was that he was like a Stephen Colbert, where he was on the side of Trump.
Okay.
So he'd hold a gas lamp up, and he'd be like, that what you think is happening isn't really happening. And as he would talk, it would just zoom in on the gas lamp.
Oh, that's really
and I was
funny.
just that was one of my favorite bits. He never mentioned gaslighting, but it was like, obviously that's what it was.
A big wink.
There's a New York Times guy who was complaining on Twitter that gaslighting isn't a real word, and his first name is Benjamin. It's
That's
it's
not a real name.
Yeah.
It's like the Hebrew Benjamin.
No.
Like 2 months ago. 2 months ago, he said, "Could we all just agree that gaslighting isn't a real word?" And he just got so much hate for it.
But Caitlin,
as a writer,
what is a word? A word has to begin as not a word.
He
every word
gaslighted people
is a made-up word.
on Gaslight.
He did.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Sorry, go ahead, Caitlin.
Go ahead,
But
Caitlin.
I think what he was complaining about was how often he saw it. He was sick of seeing
Yeah.
the word, and that's what he was.
Well,
mad.
he needs to
Right.
pivot off that.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have opinions about which words you personally like or dislike, but if you want to complain about whether or not a word is real, then you better have a definition for what a word is.
Right.
And like I said before, linguists can't even decide. So
Wow.
I would ignore people who say things like that.
My favorite
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
My
I
favorite thing is
immediately
when
ignored it.
people's names become verbs or adjectives. I wish I could come up with a really good example.
Well, there's a short list for the American Dialect Society this year. One of my favorite words of the year, which is Voldemorting.
I love that.
That's great.
What is the definition?
It means avoiding saying the name of a specific evil person.
I do that with the president.
That's
really
really
good.
funny.
That
I
is
do a
name
lot
listen.
of people. I have apps that I use to help me avoid seeing or hearing that name.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a workaround.
That's what a lot of, I'm a big Harry Potter fan. And a lot of what, like a lot of blogs and stuff they talk about how basically Trump, like the GOP is now the Death Eaters, because basically as soon as they leave or they defect from Trump, they automatically go, oh no, I didn't mean to be, I was actually working on the inside. I wasn't really a
Right.
fan of his
Well, I have a really good example of a name becoming a word. That's so Raven.
Oh yeah.
I don't think.
No?
I don't think so.
Well, that was the name
I
of
say
a
that all
show
the time.
too. That was the name of a show.
But
Yeah,
by
that's
the
right.
way, in the 1500s,
Yeah.
instead of Voldemorting, it was Macbething. Thank you.
Yay!
Sometimes if you hear people use the word "win" as a noun, that sounds like Scientology to me.
Win, W-I-N.
Yeah, that's a good win for you.
Oh,
W-I-N.
there's Scientology is famous for coming up with its own language.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which makes people, I don't know.
Also, like give, they use that as a noun too. Like you got to work on your give.
If
you
you-
got to
But
work on,
that's
you know.
cults in general.
Oh yeah,
I
Yeah.
they create their
They
own
take
language so that
verbs
that
and they
there's
turn them
a
into
sense
nouns.
of community.
When you
that,
hear that, run screaming. Anytime you hear a verb used as a noun, you should look sideways at everything.
Why? Why should you? It's really cool that words can change from nouns to adjectives.
I like
to
it.
what you want.
I mean, I think it's just because it's like what he's saying is it sounds very like cultish behavior. Like when I hear certain things like that normally come from like culty kind of things, I go, oh, I don't know if I should be around.
Right.
I'm very susceptible to
I've read-
ideas.
I've read.
So you run the other
So
way
I
just so
want-
you don't get caught in the
Yeah,
net?
I can't tell you how many times I've signed up for like $20 worth of magazines, simply 'cause- and then I'm like, why did I do that?
but this is the way language evolves. We get creative and we twist language and we mold it into something that feels uniquely us. Otherwise, everyone's talking in cliches constantly. So the next thing you know, if the way someone is saying something is so catchy, it becomes the next cliche.
But then it
Yeah.
becomes now. Okay, so I have another question,
Okay.
possibly for the panel and for Caitlin. So I grew up in the San Fernando Valley in the 80s.
Show off.
I know, and
bag your face.
but I really did go from speaking like a person to all of a sudden that song came out, the "Gag Me with the Spoon"
I didn't even know you were going there.
Yeah. And so myself and all of my friends, all of a sudden we're talking like this, and it didn't end for like 4.5 years. And this is all we talked about. It was like, "Gag me with a spoon." And we talked much faster, and we had all of these sayings. I mean, it's sort of a similar thing to what's happening now. But it's almost like our entire language changed.
But
Yeah.
don't you think that teens are constantly reinventing language?
That happens all the time. I think that that's just because teens are looking for like to be unique, so they're looking for their own language. They're looking for, but they also want to do things that other teens are doing.
They want to be unique,
Right.
but they also
Yeah.
want to belong. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
that push-pull that creates these sort of club-like turns of phrase.
So I'm an aide at a high school, and when I first started, the last year, everybody kept saying, because I was like basically like trying to be very strict, because I was like worried that kids would like,
Walk all over you.
walk all over me and sign me up for magazine subscriptions. And so I was like, I gotta be strict. And so everybody kept calling me extra, and I thought that meant that I was going the extra mile to be a great aide. And then I was like, I'm so extra. I'm the most extra. And then like I just realized this year, like, and during the summer, that meant bad. Like, I was being like bad, and I was like, oh, for the love of, like, I was just so upset.
Whenever I hear someone being called extra, I think that means, they want the bare minimum of respect. That's what extra, you're so extra. It's like, why? Because I
It's like sarcasm?
Yeah, it's sarcastic, which, by the way, teens suck at sarcasm, which is why I didn't get it, because I was like, they were like, oh, you're very extra, and I was like, thank you. I know.
That's phenomenal.
But extra means like high maintenance, sort of, right?
Yeah, or over dramatic.
Over dramatic.
That's dumb. That's not a good slang term for that.
I thought they meant that I was being like super like
Extra
fun.
great.
Yeah, extra great.
Yeah, that's not.
Because
We can repurpose it.
That's how I use extra. When I say like extra guacamole, like I'm not saying
You
like,
want more of
Yeah,
it.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying
I don't
I
want
hate
sarcastic
guacamole.
guacamole.
Yeah, that's
I just
really
want-
that's some really dramatic.
I just want
guacamole.
more.
First of all, here's word of the year for 2019: dramatic guacamole. I'm gonna make that happen.
That's good.
No, it's
I'm gonna name my band that.
kafakta.
Right. Moving on.
Wait, say it
Moving
again.
on.
Wait, say it again.
Fakakta.
Oh, what am I
Also
saying?
on the
Kafakta?
short list, and this was a word that you guys may have heard this year, incel.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's a blend of two
Yeah,
words. An
this-
incel is a member of an online community of young men who consider themselves unable to attract women sexually. Typically, they hold views that are hostile towards men and women who are actually having sex.
And the two terms are involuntary celibate, right?
Right.
Okay.
Now, right.
Involuntarily
So
celibate.
far in all the words we've talked about, this is the newest one for me. Gaslighting, I started hearing like 5 years ago.
But this
Toxic
is
has been around. Incel is very new.
But this is a term and an ideology that perhaps would not exist without the internet, because apart from the internet, the young man who's unable to find a girl and talk to a girl and mate with the girl is kind of an island. And now he's finding other people that have the same problem, and they're enraged. And so speak to this, Caitlin, because I would love to hear your thoughts about how you feel the internet contributed to the birth of this concept, this word, and this network of people.
Well, I think overall the internet's a really positive thing. It's allowed people who were islands, just like you said, to find other islands and create massive land masses that are their new communities. And I think that's overall a really positive thing. The incel community is one that actually started, I think, in rural Ontario, if I'm correct, and the blogosphere up there, and then spread to North America. And that's, on one side, I'm happy for these poor young men who are getting the life they think they deserve, that they have a community. But I can only hope that they find a way to channel that into a more positive way than just blogging about how much they hate the world. So I don't know. I think it's great for people to not feel alone. And I don't know what's going to become of that community as we go on.
The problem with it, though, is that when you're finding like-minded people who are filled with rage, it doesn't usually lead to happy places.
Right.
And it also continues this feeling of how crappy everything is for you, instead of talking to people who maybe have a different view and would say something, like, not all girls are just looking for guys with money, or not all girls are just looking for a college professor or a doctor, or you know what I mean? But they're not getting any of that input. They're only getting the input of like-minded, angry people.
They were initially. And Jake, if you listen to the same episode of Reply, okay, Jake, you explain it.
Oh, I've been thrown in. So, involuntarily celibate as a term was coined by I don't remember what she did, but
She worked in a library.
yeah, she, like it was coined as a term hoping to create a positive community for people.
And she moderated.
Yeah, and it was originally a very
started by
self-contained.
a woman.
Yes, because
Yes.
she identified with a young man that approached her and said, like, I've never had a girlfriend, and she had never had never dated anyone either. But then she fell in love and got married, to a woman, and she kind of left the group. I've asked Jake to explain this, and I'm winding up explaining this. All right,
You're
Jake.
host-splaining.
Yes, I am host-explaining. Yes, Caitlin, I have a history of it.
That's good.
She knows me
Wow.
so well.
Do you feel emasculated at all?
Well, we'll
So-
find out later on his blog.
Right.
So yeah, the incel community. I think Caitlin, what you said about trying to the internet lets people build communities of any kind around common issues, and it was meant to try to be a helpful and like you said, it was moderated in the sense that incel community now is kind of the craziest of ideologies have taken the ship and they're going all over the place with it.
Right.
And people who join in, who are just trying to find maybe even this positive community that could exist, get co-opted into this whole big machinery of oh, you'll never be happy, so now you have to be one of us because no one else will ever accept you. And it very much radicalizes young people. But it was designed to be a community to help people, to help
Wow.
people communicate, to help people talk about an issue that they're all facing, and they still are.
Through the internet mostly?
Through the internet, I believe.
Yeah.
It sounds like through the internet solely. It sounds like, are there meetings? Do they have get-togethers, the incels? And
Good question.
if there are, where are they so that I can avoid them? Because these guys sound,
Or I can
if
go.
not horrifying,
And then just scare the
really
living
lit-
shit out of all of them. And just be like, I'm ready and I'm willing. Give me your Farfignugan.
which brings,
And just be like, watch them all just pee their pants.
yeah.
With joy.
Yes.
With
Can
joy.
we move
course.
onto the word of the...
How do we?
Well,
can I ask the room a question?
Yes, Matt.
Here's a term I've always social media. Does anyone find it all that social? Because I
do.
do you?
Yeah.
When you're online and you're by yourself, it feels social to you?
I gotta be honest. I speak to most of my family through social media now because it's just easier. Because for example, I live with my aunt, but because she's usually in her craft room with her headphones on, it's such a pain in the butt to have her take her headphones off that I'll just send her a Facebook message and be like, I'm going to the kitchen. Do you need anything? So
Who needs intercoms?
Yeah. So it's just, but I will say that I feel like it's I think people view being social in the way that it's always been, which is meeting each other and having a connection, where I feel like social media is a different thing. It's a different form of social.
Right.
You're kind of connecting with people, but on a different level. So do I think it's sort of like fast food versus a home cooked meal? Do I think that, primarily you should be using social media, even though I do that now, but I mean, obviously I don't eat healthy anyways. But I just, should I be using social media as my go-to for social connection? No, but it's a way to connect to people that you normally wouldn't connect with.
I think you stay in touch with a lot more people, and I have my family's very far flung.
Yeah.
And I love my family and I love my friends. So I want to like their posts because I want them to know that I love them, and that it serves that purpose for me. That's what I get out of it. It's like I can reach out to people that I love and let them know that I love them more often than I could without it.
Absolutely.
I think it might be time then to just sort of add some new definitions to the
Yeah,
word social. Maybe?
probably.
And Caitlin, does that happen with words where we like particularly with the word social? Isn't it time to maybe
Redefine.
either make a new word or add some more layered definitions to social, because it seems so used in ways that I don't particularly find all that social.
What you're saying is it feels like an artificial social.
Social to me means leaving my apartment and making eye contact with people. That's what I think social is. But then maybe I'm, what's the term? Old.
But then you also have the word media in there. It's social media.
Well,
so
Right.
To answer your question, though, you're exactly right. That's actually one of the biggest ways to get a word nominated for Word of the Year, is having an old word that we're all familiar with sort of gain a new meaning over time.
Wow.
And you're right, social does need to be redefined in some dictionaries. And I'm not sure that they haven't. The first one to look would be in OED, because they're always the first to define new words. They might have a definition for social that as it applies on media that's interactive. which is what I would argue social media means. It just means interactive rather than just a visual ad that you just see.
Yeah.
Interactive.
Like this is show business, Matt, you know.
Then I guess I like the word interactive better than social.
Interactive media.
Yeah.
We're going to jump to
Interactive
Merriam-Webster's word of the year, which is justice. And that's a word that was already a word. But that's a word that we're looking at differently based on the times in which we live. Correct, Caitlin?
I don't even know that we're looking at differently, because I looked into this one and I looked at the way it was defined by several different dictionaries to see if there was any change in usage or meaning. And there really isn't. It means one thing or a few things, but all dictionaries agree on those few things. But I think that Merriam-Webster selected it just out of pure number of lookups. It was one of the most looked up words in their dictionary over the year. And really, that's no surprise considering.
Hold that thought.
That's a cliffhanger right there.
That is.
Considering
She just dropped off the call. Let's see where.
should be considered.
Was it me? No. Okay.
Well, I'm going to go on and say this year's news had many stories involving the division within the executive branch of government responsible for the enforcement of laws, the Department of Justice, sometimes referred to simply as Justice. Of course, the Mueller investigation itself is constantly in the news and is being carried out through the Justice Department. Another big news story included yet another meaning of the word justice as a synonym or title for judge, used frequently during the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court. So we were talking about all kinds of justice this year: racial justice, social, there you go, justice, criminal justice, economic justice. I heard the term climate justice.
David Justice, baseball player for the Oakland A's in the early 2000s.
Correct.
You know, he was 36. He was at the end of his career, and he kept playing for a little bit longer.
It seems to me that possibly their choice of this word had a lot to do with something that we yearn for, because we feel like we're living through a time where there is no justice. There are babies in cages. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
The right thing is not being done. We need justice.
I think that's a perfect example of what justice is, because I think one side is saying this is clearly a social, this is a justice issue. This needs to stop. Another side is like, it's like a camp. It's like they're going to day camp. Like they're completely gaslighting the whole
they're
thing.
gaslighting.
Very nice.
They're farfignuing the kafakta.
They're super extra.
The fakakta.
Words on the Merriam-Webster shortlist include nationalism. It's defined as loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially exalting one nation. Oh, hello, Caitlin.
What if she was at the door?
That would be
weird.
amazing.
Well, yeah, but then that would mean that somebody during this podcast installed a different doorbell.
Well,
I do not recognize that one.
I
She's
put
like,
it past
well, I
anybody.
lost the feed. I'm going to her house.
So, Caitlin, we've moved on to Merriam-Webster's shortlist, and we've got nationalism, just defined as loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially exalting one nation above all others and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interest as opposed to those of other nations or supranational groups. But to us, it feels like the word nationalism is, what was that other word from the other collate or
Collocation.
Collocation. Thank you, Caitlin. Co-located with white or other things that make the word nationalism bad. Like, there's nothing wrong with like going, yay, team, but as long as you're not trying to step on the neck of the other teams.
Yeah,
and it's also that, like, we're here on Earth, and yes, we have countries that divide us, but we're still all on the same orb revolving around the sun. So why are we so into like, oh, well, this is where someone drew a line 500 years ago, and therefore other people don't matter?
Do you think, I mean, this might be completely going off topic, but do you think that's just human nature? Do you think that...
Of course it is.
There's
There's tribalism.
Yeah.
And it's always been that way, that we were in tribes to exist and to form a little community. And it's always been this push-pull between forming community at the exclusion of others and what's a healthy balance.
If you're at a baseball game, and I've been to like 3 of them, and they start playing the national anthem, I'll stand up and sing, right? But I don't, even though it's very violent imagery.
There's a distinction between patriotism and nationalism.
That's what I was trying to say, yeah.
That nationalism, like patriotism says, I'm a fan of my country. I'm a citizen and I do things for it, like pay taxes, and it does things for me, like build roads. And nationalism says, not just I'm a fan of my country, but those other countries should be part of my country now, or they shouldn't exist. Nationalism puts you, like you can be a patriot without saying my country is above everyone else.
But doesn't it feel like nationalism, as it's currently defined, means that I like my country only if it involves or includes just certain people? Like, I even would like my country to eliminate certain other types of people who think they're a part of my country, but I don't think they are.
It's hard to think about a country that exists in the modern era that wasn't formed on some form of racial boundaries or segregation. America is actually super interesting because of that. But if you look at any kind of historical, long-standing nation state, they're founded kind of on a people as much as they are a place. And to think about separating nation and race is really tricky.
Yes, but if you really look back at history, you'll see that people were always migrating. So, we can look at history over thousands of years, but we can only look at the life that we're living here on this earth for like about 100 years. And we don't see those big wave patterns that were happening when people would migrate and then they would kind of make families with people that lived there and form people that looked at a way that they look now. But back then it was like, oh my gosh, new people, let's throw stones at them. So
let's get to pansexual because I can see that that's the next word.
Yeah, it is.
And
yes, and I'm talking myself into a nationalistic corner.
Speaking of nationalism, here's pansexual.
All right, pansexual saw a spike in lookups in April when singer Janelle Monáe, who was quoted in Rolling Stone magazine, self-identifying with the term. Today, the word most often is used to mean of, relating to, or characterized by sexual desire or attraction that is not limited to people of a particular gender, identity, or sexual orientation. But the word entered the English language in the early 20th century with a different use, tending to suffice all experience and conduct with erotic feeling. So that seems like two completely different definitions, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Well, words change. I mean, a word is invented, someone defines it, and then there's no control over what people do with it. So whether it's a misunderstanding of what that word was intentionally used for, or whether people prefer to use it to mean something else.
So it used to use the word could have applied to, oh my God, I'm hot for my spatula.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like that girl who married the Eiffel
we made
Tower.
the joke.
I always felt that pansexual meant you want to have sex with absolutely everything
All
around
the
you.
pans.
Yeah.
Every pan.
Twice
My cupboard.
even. Twice the pan
And
joke.
if you want
I
to have
love
sex
it.
with Mexican custard, you're flansexual.
My pan flute
my
is
God.
looking
What?
really
Bisexual.
I think I heard a laugh in D.C. I heard a laugh. There, see? Got her.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
I was going to ask, Caitlin, are there any words that have kind of veered and changed in definition that you've been like, oh, I wish that it would have stayed the same? Or is it because of your work, you're just sort of used to the fact that words change?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I was much more judgmental in my youth. I'm sure that there are words that I disliked how they changed in meaning, but I can't recall them now because, I mean, if you're going to love words, then you have to respect the democratic process, which elects the meaning of words, and it's beyond any one person's control. And that's great.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to dictionary.com because this is actually my favorite. I don't know if you guys will have a favorite by the end of the show, but
this should be good.
The WOTY for dictionary.com is misinformation. Dictionary.com defines it as false information that is spread regardless of whether there is intent to mislead, as opposed to disinformation, which means deliberately misleading or biased information, manipulated narrative, or facts, propaganda. If a politician strategically spreads information that they know to be false in the form of articles, photos, memes, etc., that's disinformation. When an individual sees this disinformation, believes it, and then shares it, that's misinformation. And to me, this is so much about what we have experienced this year. What are your thoughts, Caitlin?
Well, misinformation is really interesting just in light of this whole fake news thread that we've been on for a few years now, but also because I looked it up in several competing dictionaries online and they can't agree whether or not inherent in the term is deliberate misinformation or any deliberateness behind it. And so I think it'll shake out in the coming years whether we define it as deliberately misleading people or just unwittingly, like your auntie sharing a news story on Facebook without reading it properly.
Okay, so the rest of the world hasn't delineated the way dictionary.com has between these two terms.
Yeah, they haven't yet.
So
One
when you're-
dictionary has, but
So when
others
your
don't.
when your uncle posts the Fox News reports and emails them to his family,
That's
That's
no,
miss-
wouldn't that
Do
still
you
be
think that-
disinformation
I
if
was
he's
gonna-
forwarding actual
but what
news
if he
stories?
believes it though?
If he
What
knows
if he thinks,
that-
my loved ones must know this information?
I was
will-
going to ask, is it like a retroactive response? Because I can't tell you how many times somebody's posted something. I've looked it up, found that it wasn't true, and then they're like, "Well, it seems real."
Right.
And and it's like, okay, well, it's not.
Yeah, what's
so-
the word for wanting it to be true?
Right.
Because I know.
That's wishing, isn't it?
Wish
I think
information.
Wish information.
Wish information.
I think Alex Jones knows he's making.
That's the kind of news
stuff
I
up.
would do. Here's the news I would like to be real.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Alex Jones is
Guacamole.
a perfect example of obvious disinformation.
But I do think that Lori's point is an excellent one, where people
you.
share it because maybe that will make it true.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah, that's more of a psychological thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
I think-
funny though, because to me that's kind of the same thing. Like spreading information that you're not sure about, especially after somebody said, you know what, I looked that up, it's completely not true. To
Yeah.
continue to do it, to me, would still be the same as Fox News doing the original story.
Yeah, so
right?
you can evolve
Yeah.
from misinforming to disinforming.
Also, there's the spin of it where you go, because like we've found, I think there's always been like a false narrative that if you tell somebody, if you show somebody that what they believe isn't true, that they will go, oh, okay, thank you, I will now change my
that doesn't
beliefs.
happen.
That doesn't happen. People double down on what they believe. So I think that like conspiracy theories and like we find, all these things where it's like it's kind of become more and more of a thing. So is that disinformation? Because I think these people genuinely believe what's happening, but it's wrong.
They do. I was having dinner with a friend of mine who
Good for
told
you.
me that in Barack Obama's own book, in the foreword, he told that he's from Kenya, that he was born in Kenya. In the foreword of his own book, he revealed that he's from Kenya. And I had literally just finished the book,
Okay.
Dreams for My Father. And no, I said, no, it's
Yeah.
no, that's not in there. And that my husband, I read the book, loved it. My husband read it, and we were both with our friend. And my husband said, yeah, I read it too. He doesn't. And I don't know that he ever conceded. I think he stopped talking.
Yeah.
He went on to the next rumor that he believed.
Which
but-
is amazing.
Yeah,
Something
yeah. If
that's
you're
that
just
easy to
swapping-
prove, too, when you can show them the inside cover
Right.
of
Yeah.
the book and say it's not there, and for them to still say, well, listen, I heard it, so
Yeah.
don't blame me.
Yeah.
If I were to say that Gandhi was a pedophile, would that make anybody go, what? In here, in the room. I'll
For
say it
sure.
again.
I mean, just
Yeah.
because he
Yes.
wore
Okay,
a diaper, I
okay.
don't think that
Have
proves
you
anything.
ever heard of that?
No.
No.
Okay, I just saw something posted on Facebook where they took all of our heroes, like John Lennon, right? We love John Lennon.
Right.
We have since found out that he was a bit of a wife beater, haven't we?
Yeah.
Have we heard that?
Yeah.
We've heard some bad things about John Lennon. Gandhi was on this list.
Oh, he's racist.
That
was
Gandhi was
He hated
racist?
women as well.
Yeah.
Wait, what
Oh.
did you say, Caitlin?
He also hated women.
Gandhi?
Oh.
Gandhi did?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
that's
okay.
it probably helped him to live a more peaceful life.
Yeah. I mean,
I would think.
I have,
Oh
I have
my
to be
God.
honest. When you're starving yourself, you don't want to hear a lot of jabber jabber. Okay,
Exactly.
So it's like, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
that nagging.
None of this is in the Get Ben
Yeah.
Kingsley version.
Right, right. Because he
So
would be like,
disillusioned.
hey, get out of the kitchen and don't make me any food. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
starve over here.
Yeah.
You people
But
are
all of this reminds me of the Mandela effect. Have you guys heard of the Mandela effect, whereby a huge group of people just believed that Nelson Mandela had died when he was in prison? And there are a number of instances where society decides something is historically true and then don't quite believe when they find out that, no, you made that up in your mind. Have you heard of this?
Wow.
If there was ever a
Yeah.
time that I've been inspired to not have any heroes, it's been within the last 2 years. Like, it's like there are so
Yeah.
many. Find your inspiration where you can and where you have to. I'm not saying don't get inspired by this
No,
or
I
that
get
thing.
it.
I
But
think-
what I am saying is worship no one.
Yeah.
Don't. That's what you're doing when you have a hero. I think.
I
was-
think would it be healthy, Caitlin, for all of us to as we continue our journey online to read things and say, I wonder if that's true,
Yes.
rather than just reading everything and assuming it must be true. Like, is there too much skepticism that you can have that ruins the experience?
No, absolutely not. I don't think there's any such thing as too much I mean, if you're not checking sources and then double checking those sources and then reading 3 opinion pieces about those sources, then you're never even going to get close to the truth. And if that ruins it for you, then don't do it.
Right.
But
Yes.
But I think that ruins it for a lot of people. That's why they don't do it.
I check sources,
wholesale.
but only if it's something that I don't agree with.
We're gonna
very smart.
If it's something I agree with, I'm
Very
like,
smart.
checks,
Yeah,
checks
that sounds
out.
right.
Checks out.
The American Dialect Society, their word of the year, and I think you know this one, Caitlin.
Yes. Do you want me to say it?
Yes, please.
It's tender age shelter
Okay, tell us.
or facility
us-
or center.
Tell us why you think they went with this. It's not a commonly used word. Was it the most disturbing word we heard?
Yeah, I mean, they have a history of picking darkly euphemistic or even darkly humorous words to describe
Wow.
the political situations in the U.S. So last year, 2 years ago, their word was dumpster fire to describe 2016.
Yes.
That pretty much says it.
I think they like to have a dark humor about things. And tender age shelter was actually in the category of most euphemistic.
Meaning,
And
like, this
I
is,
think
we'll put a spin on this that makes it sound not so horrific.
Yeah, it came out in media, I think in June of last year. And everyone at American Dialect Society just thought it was so ridiculous to try and euphemize the separating of babies from their parents.
I just remember
Someone had that job, too.
I
We need you
remember,
to come up with a...
Rachel Maddow reading this word in her prompter and
Yes.
bursting into
She
tears.
lost
She
it.
saw it for the first time in her prompter and she lost it.
This brings up something I emailed you earlier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where I was watching Vice the other night, and there's a scene.
Matt,
Starring.
he's in. He has an entire line.
It's not about me. It's not about
Okay,
me.
but is he really in it?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It doesn't matter.
Way to
plays
pivot.
Doug Fife.
Oh, you're so famous.
So,
So they had to focus group estate tax because they wanted to make it less appealing. So they called it death tax, and they focus grouped global warming because too many people were wanting
globally
to
hot.
wanting to start changing the world for the better, and so they changed it to climate change, which doesn't sound so bad.
Not as warm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that is fascinating. The thought that, there's a think tank changing words to make it more palatable or to make it sound worse,
Yeah.
depending on what they need.
Right, because the words tender, age, and shelter didn't just spill out of someone's
See, that
mouth
sounds horrifying. to me,
extemporaneously.
though.
That was a meeting that was held.
Right.
I was
It
watching.
was.
I've been listening. Well, I just started this book by Steve Kornacki.
Ooh, yeah, I want to read that one.
Yeah, and so one of the things, and I read this article about where he talks about a little bit about the book, and one of the things he talked about was how Ohio was flipped around that time, and how basically they were able to separate and make it more of a red versus blue, which was partial birth abortions, which was the issue they ran on. So I forgot the medical term, but the medical term is for like in cases of severe emergency where the life of the mother is at stake.
Yep.
That they do these abortions, but then the GOP changed it to partial birth abortions, which sounds disgusting
And made it
violent.
sound like
Yeah.
a total
Yeah.
legal to do it anytime you feel like
Yeah.
getting rid of your pregnancy.
Basically,
Yes.
as the baby's coming out, if the mom decides that she doesn't want the child anymore, she
Right.
could be like, you know what, let's put a button on this.
Yes.
And so I just find it hilarious that now they are trying to do the opposite, and they're trying to make it sound so fluffy. And I'm surprised they didn't say like tender age day camp. Like, I'm surprised they didn't go like all the way and say like, Sunnyside, campsite or something like that. It's just like, why? It's just so interesting to me that the way that they use words in order to sort of like manipulate people. And you just see it on Fox News. You see them going like, it's really not that big of a deal. It's like, how can you honestly think that?
Absolutely.
What are you saying? All right, we have to jump to Lingua Bish's word of the year because you guys have been hot on the case, and I want to hear a little bit about the dialogue back and forth and how your committee voted.
Committee. That's generous of you. So you get the hot words from social media, or if you work with children, then you're lucky enough to hear them day to day. Me and Kaylin, we're not that, hip to the vibe. So we had to ask some of our cooler friends for suggestions of words of the year. And some of them we contributed ourselves. And then what our committee was an online Twitter poll that we conducted, where I actually voted twice. And so my word won, which was big mood. I love big mood.
Yes.
It's my favorite word of 2018 for social media.
Okay,
because
define
it builds on hashtag mood, which is something I've seen on social media for a long time, but it intensifies it. And I think that old hashtag mood was so tired that it really needed the intensification, and big mood just satisfies all those cravings, and I'm loving it.
That guy epitomizes big mood. That guy right there.
That right there.
That guy,
So
is
this-
hilarious.
This is the
did you
first.
see that guy?
I said,
That's Ben Affleck.
What?
whoa.
That's Ben Affleck.
No, that is not.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh! Do you guys remember when he lied about having that back tattoo? Do you remember
Yes.
when he came the back tattoo and he said no, that's for a movie, and then he was on the beach and everybody was like, "Why do you still have this?"
He
if the movie's done?"
disinformed us. That was
We were
disinformation.
disinformed, Lisa.
Speaking of Hollywood, my scene in Vice is only about 40 seconds long. It comes at the 1 hour and 32 minute mark.
All right, well,
Vice,
that's
check
when
it out.
That's when I will.
Way to pivot.
All right, what
I
other
love
words
big mood.
did you have? Because we have to cut. We're going to have to cut the show, and Lisa has to go pick up her child. She thinks that's something.
That's why you have to stop?
Yeah,
I feel so-
At 5:30.
Is that
we have-
misinformation or
I
disinformation?
will leave it the second the show ends.
All right. So
Yes.
what?
Pizza. Have you had the
So
pizza?
I'm
we're cutting this
gluten-free
whole
and
part out,
dairy-free.
Caitlin. So what
Okay.
else? Big mood. I want to see the rest of you guys' list because your list is fantastic and I recommend it.
Thank you very much. Our other words are the brands, which is a word that has come to mean all multinational corporations. So especially when they're doing, publicity stunts that are made to look like they're great for the environment, or like they're supporting the Me Too movement. They'll do things like, oh, this is what the brands are doing now to gain our attention.
Like they
Or
all
there
go
was
to the same meeting every morning.
Can I
Right.
can I
There
say
was
something?
one
Yeah.
tweet against Trump where it's like, okay, now the brands are trolling Trump.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, Trump got majorly trolled today, by the way, by Burger King.
Because
Yes.
brands are on it.
Because
I love it.
he spelled hamburger HAMBERGER.
I thought it was hamburger.
Burger.
Hamburger.
And so my husband just told me this in the car, and so
Hashtag fat thumbs.
they they tweeted, "Sorry, today we're all out of hamburgers. we had a really big order, but we do still have hamburgers."
This is confused with the Nerf herder, which is a Star Wars.
They're feeling not such a big mood as having not been served yesterday, whereas McDonald's big mood was served at the White House.
Oh, it was McDonald's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was.
This is political discourse. This is the state of our nation.
Oh, yeah.
Is that
Oh,
Burger
yeah.
King
Yeah, jump on
made
board.
fun of a spelling mistake of the president's Twitter.
And it's okay.
This is what we're like
and we
now.
expect it. Like, I would have been angry if they didn't.
Yeah,
you know?
Burger King.
You know what helps? Burger King.
There it is.
Look at
Oh,
that.
that's
Burger King
is
is a
amazing.
restricted logo.
Wow, you guys are fast.
You see that R? It's already restricted. You can't use it. We can't say it.
That's
We can be sued.
hilarious.
Is it made of bird?
But I wanted to
Burgers.
say something super quick about the brands
Yeah,
thing.
the brands.
Is that I was watching something today, I don't know what, and CoverGirl, you know what, I might have been watching a very old show, so this might have happened a long time ago, but CoverGirl just became completely cruelty-free, which is a big thing for me. I'm only using cruelty, and I started crying. I had a commercial because I was so happy for CoverGirl, so I'm going to go buy some mascara
Well,
right
we're gonna
after this.
Yes, definitely you should do that. We're going to have the brands. Did you have one more word you want to run by us, Caitlin? Before we...
Sure. Another one that I really liked was weird flex, but okay.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
I love that one too.
Please describe.
Yeah,
About that. Fine, whatever.
You have to explain that because it's hilarious.
Lori is loving this one.
One of the best representations of it is a tweet from, I think it's The Hill, where they're quoting Kavanaugh during the Kavanaugh hearings.
Right.
Because I was a virgin in high school, and many years after, someone responds, okay, weird flex, but okay.
In other words, if that's what you need to brag
Is
about,
Why
amazing.
are you bragging about that?
go brag.
That is hilarious.
I love it. Look at his expression. He also
Oh,
likes
that's
beer.
great.
He likes beer.
I'm gonna use this. I work with high school kids, so this will be used
Oh,
all the
this is-
time.
Oh, see, we need you. you.
That's wonderful.
All right, so we're going to move on to Facebook feed time, and this comes, and I just have to do this, and it's apropos of nothing, but I have to do it because I am a Broadway geek. All right, so Facebook feed time comes from Bruce Goldberg, and you're going to use the attachment. There it is. Do you love that picture or what? In celebration of the life of Carol Channing, Goodbye Dolly, a true Broadway legend. So that was quite a run.
Are they dimming the lights?
She's
90s. Oh, they will dim the lights for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, legend.
Like
she
for
was
15
super
minutes or something?
Yeah. She was the first lady of musical comedy.
For absolute sure. Nothing like her.
Can I tell a weird rumor that my uncle told me when I was really young about Carol
If you're
Channing?
going to tell
Was
me
she a
that
womanizer?
Carol Channing is a wife beater, I need you to leave.
There's a great episode of Lucille Ball and Carol Channing on an old episode of Password, and they are drunk off their asses.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Oh, I gotta watch that.
Bosom
No.
buddies.
So my uncle told me, he said that, and this is a rumor. So just FYI, this is like some people say this all the time. So he told me a friend of his, which is quote unquote a friend of his, was saw Carol Channing at a restaurant, went into the bathroom, and she was in the bathroom stall and heard her say, "Corn? When did I have corn?"
That sounds like an urban legend, but I want it to be true, so I am passing it on as misinformation.
Yeah.
When
Very
did I
good.
have corn?
When did I have corn?
I don't know when
In
I have
Carol's
corn.
voice, yes, I love it. So what's Twitter trending? Now we're back to big brands. Was it
The brands.
The brands.
the brands? Sorry, big mood, big brand. The brands. And I guess Gillette would be one of them because it's part of Procter & Gamble. So can we play this ad? They want us to play the ad, right?
Only if you want to cry. I cried a
You
lot.
will cry. You will cry. But
Idris
it
Elba.
was something like this should not be controversial, and yet it was.
I'd like to see that man's Farfig Noonan.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual
Toxic
harassment.
masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get?
This is toxic, man.
Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Mansplain, Caitlin.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool. Not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men.
and small.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
It's not how we treat each other, okay? Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Jesus.
So did the brands get it right?
Yes, but I hope they're not advocating for the stop of barbecuing.
Yeah, that was a weird stereotype.
Yeah.
That's a rough stance.
That was a weird flex, but I do have to shave. I notice I am a little
I think
scraggly.
that was pretty cool. I love the sentiment
wanna hear
behind
from-
it.
you laughed at a
I wanna
certain
hear
point.
from
What was that about?
It's just hilarious because that wants me to go out and buy a razor. What makes me think that they genuinely care about anything other than they did their polling? They decided this much of our audience finally agrees with this social issue, so we'll speak out in support of it. Just like the conservative brands wait until it's just the right time to support some conservative thing and be like, oh, this is bad. And then they get a huge wave of popularity. It's not like Gillette is where I turn to for my moral, ethical reasoning.
But would you rather
Maybe not
see
you.
this than see just some brawny guy shaving and having some girl want to touch his cheek?
I'd rather we ask our advertisements to not virtue signal and say, oh, I'm so progressive and great, and just say, we're a good razor. And then I'll buy a good
That's
razor.
another word. I can't believe we haven't seen virtue
Oh,
signal.
that's a pretty
Wait,
good
can
word.
I hear Rhodey? Because Rhodey is your girlfriend. I
Yes,
would like
there
to
she is,
hear,
right over there.
Because Rhodey, she's like on the cutting edge of social issues. So I just want to hear what she is. She is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jake on this. We were talking about it on the car ride over
Okay.
here. So, yes, I agree with the message I agree with the message and that,
boys will be boys is a bad thing to say, and like we need to re-examine our masculine values. But that doesn't seem like what they care about. They're trying to sell you a product. And like, yes, I think we should be I don't know. Our society is like completely focused on capitalism. So if we're gonna say that way, like, I guess we might as well have it include good messages, since that's the best we can get, but it doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel like a win for us, because it's still like...
That's what's hard, though. It's like you do sort of want them to just go, hey, our razors are really good. We've been in business for like hundreds of years
if
now.
You have hair, we will remove it.
Right, but
so it's not the message, it's who's giving the message.
I used to listen to this, I used to listen to this radio show, April Winchell. She used to be in advertising, and one of the things she talked about is that when they do emotional pleas, something has gone wrong in a factory.
Someone lost an arm.
Like, it was very emotional, but then now that you say that, I go, there was a dumpster fire somewhere in a factory. Yeah.
Well, Twitter went a little nuts, and because we're a very divided nation, and for reasons that are very different from Jake and Rhodey's, there's a whole right-wing contingency that doesn't want to be told that masculinity is ever toxic. And so they were hashtagging boycott Gillette, and that hashtag was fueled by those who see the ad as masculinity shaming. So there was this tweet from Daniel Schultz, and he tweeted, "What is most amusing is to see the anti-capitalist SJW," Caitlin, what's the
Social Justice Warrior.
Thank you. Crowd flocking in here to defend a multinational corporation. Do you really think they give a rat's ass about your social agenda? You are even dumber than I thought. Hashtag boycott Gillette. Hashtag go woke, go broke.
And that's really the best way to make your point, by calling people dumb, by the way. You will win every argument if you point your finger and call people stupid.
But what's fascinating to me is that you would want to... Look, I understand. Like, Jake's point to me was absolutely brilliant and has completely opened my eyes. I'm not even joking. Like, I'm blown away by what you both said. But... to boycott a company because they were saying we need to do better, we just need to, is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
How much of an asshole are you that you're now calling for a boycott of a product because they said stop grabbing women's asses? Like that,
it just literally shows the fear that they have.
I'm thinking you didn't really want to shave anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. Did you see his beard? That's clear. What do your boy did? He used to shave his legs?
I don't know if you know this, but that is a Gillette that's strictly for you to shave your balls. That's what that Gillette's for.
There was a tweet where somebody did like hashtag boycott Gillette, and they were just like, well, I guess if all you want to use your product is women, and then a woman retweeted and said, who's going to tell him? In other words, we already shave things. There's parts of our body that get shaved.
Yeah.
You guys just don't want to see it on your Fox anchors.
But one of the things that I think they brought up is one thing that I've been talking about at the high school, because I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm an 8.
You mentioned that you...
Also, Matt Champagne was in Vice. I don't know if he's mentioned
Did you know that Lisa was in Seinfeld and Curb?
Yeah, and Mad TV.
Oh,
I remember that,
yeah, and Mad TV.
So the feminism gets brought up a lot, and there are some teenage boys there who, they'll have like these frustrated things. And I think feminism, the definition needs to be stretched to men as well, because I think one of the things about feminism is people think it's exclusively for women, and I think it's actually all men too. Like if feminism is about recognizing that men don't need to be these like toxic masculine dudes in order to be accepted in society.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think a lot of times people just think about just strictly the women's side of it. And it's like, no, it's like there's so many issues that men deal with every day that don't get talked about, that that should be talked about. But they're not, because people view it as like, I can't talk about this because it's not a manly thing to talk about.
Lane, you had a point?
Yeah, I was just gonna say to the like Gillette thing, is to Jake's point, like we know it's all polling and stuff, but like we can't ignore the fact that people are going to get moral messages from advertising.
Sure.
I don't want to go to advertising, but like young boys are going to see Gillette ads like regardless. So I'd rather it be a good ad campaign, even if they're doing it for like nefarious reasons, than just be like, oh, buy our razor.
Yeah.
Because what I think it comes down to is, like you said, we're in like we're not getting away from capitalism. It's not going away. Like Gillette isn't going away. Like Procter & Gamble isn't going away.
Those razors are expensive,
Very
too.
expensive. So we should just force those companies to say the messages that we want to say.
Well, what if
right?
I would just
like,
rather see Joe Namath shave his leg? Can't I just?
we can have that too,
Okay,
but we'll just have in a voiceover being like, "Men should do better." Here's me shaving my leg.
And you can shave your legs if you want to.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
just want to say one thing about the Gillette. So I think that where this originates is that razors are expensive, and there's a lot of options now for much cheaper razor products.
Yeah, the Dollar Shave.
Yeah, exactly. So Gillette wants to, be relevant again. So, like, what better way than to grab people with something like this? However, I would argue that this is not an example of what would be called the brands, because to me, and I don't know if Caitlin would like maybe disagree, but to me, the brands refers to like very like internet speak heavy, kind of tongue in cheek, like funny sort of, like not really like trying to make a difference kind of social media posting. This, I think, is really an example. Like, I look at it as an example of some, like, an entity that has some, pull using what power it has to make a statement and, like, provide a good message. Like, I really don't see it as a negative, although, of course, I understand that it's, rooted in capitalism.
I've seen emotional pleas like this done much better. Is the thing. There was a commercial a couple of years ago where they had girls. There was somebody off camera asking,
like a girl.
Run like a girl. Or like they were asking boys, run like a girl, and then the boys would run in a silly sort of effeminate way. And then they would ask the same questions of young girls that were at the same age.
If they were before puberty, they thought it meant just run like who I am.
Yeah.
But if they had gotten to puberty and they heard that as something that was lesser than.
That was a great ad. That was very emotional.
Well, I mean, like the message of the Gillette ad, like I have heard so many people on the right complain about how our culture is so bad for boys and men. And I don't understand why
bad,
that
like
would
it doesn't encourage them to be men.
That boys and men are suffering probably most likely as a result of like liberal feminism, and they're not making as much money as women. They're suffering from like addictions and stuff like that. Yeah. So I mean, if I was someone on the right who agreed with that, and someone is providing like a possible solution, I would jump on board with that.
It's funny that you bring up that point, because one thing I saw in this Gillette thing that was interesting was they're still one of the holdouts on Tucker Carlson. They're still, because there was like that big like ad kind of like exodus from him after he said like immigrants were dirty, and then he also right after had that thing. He had a whole segment on that where it's just like, society is horrible for men. Yeah. If women are making enough money, society is going to collapse.
Right.
And so it's interesting that Gillette is doing this while also advertising there.
Wow.
But again, it's like, if they see this and they see that this is like a good move for them, then it's like, yeah, don't go with the others. Like, we basically have to be the bigger side to these companies that like make them think that we are basically the bigger cash cows, which sucks, but like we have to do it if we want these. It's part of making these issues
social energy
move
has
forward.
to.
I think the biggest problem is those Dollar Shave razors have this weird yellow line underneath where I need that blade to get right underneath my nostrils, and it doesn't it can't get there. And I used them for maybe 6 months, and I had to go back to Gillette. I had to.
Gillette is a fine product.
I got to get this area here,
Also,
and I can't get it with the.
Why don't
Gillette
you use nose hair trimmers?
Yeah. Gillette comes in
it's
bulk.
stubble. It's stubble right here.
Gillette comes in bulk on Prime, so that's why I get Gillette.
All right.
So.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a good note to end on. Gillette comes in bulk on Prime.
Shave it up, guys.
Caitlin O'Connell, I want to thank you so much for being with us. It was absolutely delightful. And where can people find you online?
You can find us at LinguaBishes on Twitter or Instagram, and at linguabishes.com on the interwebs.
And take part in the conversation, because it is about words and your words matter. So thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for being with us. I am Louise Palanker. I would love for you to be safe, be well, and be kind. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.